70s, when it wasn't popular, stood up for our gay and lesbian sisters and brothers. Heart-soul agreement. And he doesn't change his views based on polling. He has heart-soul agreement. And Ohio, I want you to beware of folks who tell us not to dream big. We are not going from yes we can to no we can't. The foundation as of why Senator Sanders is running is married in a quote by Brother Robert Browning when he says that man's reach should exceed his grasp. That is why Senator Bernie Sanders is running. Or to put it another way, when Congresswoman Barbara Jordan said what the people want is simple. They want an America as good as it's promised. That is why Senator Bernie Sanders is running. So when he talks about increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour so people can live a good life, the cause is right and the time is now. When he talks about universal health care for all folks in this country, that we don't leave 29 million of our sisters and brothers behind, the cause is right and the time is now. And when he talks about extending Social Security and making sure that it is there for our seniors, our elders in this country, so that they don't have to choose between paying their mortgage or buying their prescription, the cause is right and the time is now. And to my millennials, Senator Sanders understands that it is unfair to you to graduate with a degree in one hand and debt in the other. That we got to make sure that you can renegotiate your interest rates on your loans, but more importantly, that every child in the United States of America should know that it doesn't matter who their parents are or are not, that they will be able to go to college. The cause is right, and the time is now. And if we can spend billions of dollars every single year to put our sisters and brothers in prison, my God, we can make that same investment in education. The cause is right and the time is now. So Ohio, I need you to come out for Senator Sanders, and I need you to take some folks with you. It is good that the family has gotten together and that we are cheering him on, but what he needs is that folks go out and vote for him. Do not forget to vote for him and take some people with you, because we will never get this opportunity again. Never get this opportunity again. Heart, soul agreement. Now, we're going to bring the senator out here, but before we do that, now y'all got to warm this thing up for the senator. So when I say feel, you say burn. Feel, 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 feel. Oh, we got to do that again, Ohio. When I say feel, you say burn. Feel, 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 feel. Let's bring the man who has heart-soul agreement. The man who's going to become the next president of the United States of America, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you. Thank you, Columbus. Let me begin by thanking Kevin Key, Morgan Johnson, Michael Futrell, Jonathan Jackson, and what can we say about Senator Nina Turner? Let me tell you, it is very hard to follow Senator Turner. Before I get into the thrust of my remarks, I wanted to say something. I love you too, and I thank you all for being here. I just wanted to say a word about something that really disturbed me that I heard this afternoon. What I learned this afternoon and read about is that Donald Trump is prepared to pay the legal fees of folks who go around beating up people. A candidate for President of the United States should condemn violence, not encourage violence. You don't go around and saying it's okay to beat somebody up and I'll pay the legal fees. That is not what this country is about. And that is one of the reasons that we in the last poll are ahead of Donald Trump by 18 points. The people of this country are not going to elect a president who insults Mexicans, who insults Muslims, who insults women, who insults veterans like Senator John McCain, who insults everybody who is not like him. The American people are not going to elect a president who was one of the leaders of the so-called birther movement, which tried to delegitimize President Barack Obama. You know, I have always found it very amusing that my father was born in Poland. President Obama's father was born in Kenya. They wanted his birth certificate. Nobody asked for my birth certificate. Think it might have something to do with the color of my skin? I think so. Now, we started this campaign at 3% in the polls, 60, 70 points behind Secretary Clinton. A lot has changed in the last 10 months. In the last few months, we have won 9 state primaries and caucuses. And you know what I think? I think on Tuesday, we're going to win here in Ohio. And the reason that we're going to win is we are in the process together of revitalizing American democracy. The word is getting out that every person in this room, every person in America has enormous power if he or she is prepared to use that power. And the word is getting out that if we stand together, we don't let the Trumps of the world divide us up. If we stand together as black and white and Latino and Asian American and Native American, if we stand together as gay and straight, if we stand together as people who are born in this country or immigrated to this country, if we stand together, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. That's what this campaign is about. Now, the reason I believe our campaign is doing so very well is that we are doing something unusual in American politics. We are telling the American people the truth. But the truth is not always pleasant. But it is necessary to hear and discuss, because you can't go forward unless you know where you are. We can't sweep the major problems facing us under the rug. And let me just address a few of the major issues that I believe as a nation we have got to deal with. Number one, people fought and died, and we thank our veterans for their service. People fought and died to defend American democracy. And you know what American democracy is about? It is one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections. And I have to tell you what many of you already know, and that is today we have a corrupt campaign finance system undermining American democracy. And that is why together we are going to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. And here is another truth that if some people don't know intellectually, they surely know in their day-to-day lives, and that is we have a rigged economy. Today in America, the top 1/10 of 1%, 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. 20 wealthiest people own more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million people. One family, the Walton family of Walmart, owns more wealth than the bottom 40%, one family. I want to say a word, given that you already know the Walton family, I want to say a word about them. You know, you got a lot of Republicans, senators, governors going around the country talking about welfare abuse, poor people ripping off the welfare system. Let me tell you who the major recipient of welfare is in the United States today. It is the Walton family of Walmart. And you know why? They pay their workers at Walmart wages that are so low that many of their workers are forced to go on Medicaid, food stamps, and subsidized housing. And do you know who pays for those food stamps, Medicaid, and subsidized housing? You do. That is what a rigged economy is, when the middle class has to bail out the wealthiest family in America. So I say to the Walton family, the wealthiest family in America, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. But it's not just that we have a corrupt campaign finance system. It's not just that we have a rigged economy. And by the way, when we talk about the rigged economy, know this, that millions of Americans today are working 2 or 3 jobs. Mom works, dad works, the kids work, marriages suffer, kids don't get the attention they need, and after all of that, 58% of all new income goes to the top 1%. Well, it's not really so radical, but together we are going to create an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. But it's not just the corrupt campaign finance system and a rigged economy. It is a broken criminal justice system. What this campaign is about is thinking outside of the box, not allowing the media to define for you what you can think about. And I want you to think about this for a moment. You are living in the wealthiest country today in the history of the world. Now, most people don't know that because almost all of the new income and wealth goes to the people on top, but that's the truth. What I want you to think about is, how does it happen that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we have more people in jail than any other country on earth? China has a population 4 times our size. We've got more people in jail than China. What we are going to do is make profound reforms to end this type of nonsense, where 2.2 million people in this country are rotting in jail right now, and we're spending $80 billion a year to keep them in jail. Just a few points on that. Just a few points. Today, when you look at unemployment, youth unemployment, if kids are white who graduated high school between 17 and 20, youth unemployment 33%. That's for white kids. Latino kids 36%, African American kids 51%. What we are going to do is invest for our young people in education and jobs, not jails and incarceration. We are tired of seeing videos on TV of unarmed people being killed by police officers. Now, I was a mayor for 8 years. I worked with police departments in my city and all over this country. Most police officers work hard, are honest, and do a very, very difficult job. But if a police officer, like any other public official, breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. We have got to demilitarize local police departments. We have got to make police departments look like the diversity of the communities they serve. In my state of Vermont, neighboring New Hampshire and states all over New England and this country, we've got a major, major problem with heroin overdosing and opiate abuse. It is taking lives every single day. What we have got to recognize is that drug abuse, substance abuse, is a health issue, not a criminal issue. We have got to recognize that over the last 30 years, millions of Americans have received police records for the possession of marijuana. We need to rethink the so-called war on drugs. Right now, under the Federal Controlled Substance Act, at Schedule 1, the highest level, marijuana stands alongside of heroin. That is absurd. You can argue, scientists are researching the pluses and minuses of marijuana, but everybody knows marijuana does not equate to the killer drug heroin. And that is why I have introduced legislation to take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. Now, as you know, states have the right to legalize marijuana or not. That's a state issue. But I believe possession of marijuana should not be a federal crime. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about some of the differences between Secretary Clinton and myself. And those differences are pretty profound. And I'll give you some examples. Number one, you can tell a lot about a candidate based on how he or she raises the money they need for a campaign. When I began this campaign, we had no money, no political organization, nobody outside of Vermont knew who I was. Other than that, we were in pretty good shape. But what we had to do is make a decision. And the decision was, do we do what every other campaign does and establish a super PAC, go to Wall Street, go to corporate America, go to the billionaires, and beg for money? We agreed with what you said. No, we're not going to do that. Truth is, I don't now, and I never have, represented billionaires or the interest of Wall Street or the drug companies. We don't want their money. But what we did, which is something unprecedented, we said to the middle class and working families of this country that if you want to see real change in this country, if you want to see a candidate and a president take on the billionaire class and corporate America and Wall Street, help us out. And what happened is mind-blowing. Never in a million years would I have believed it could have happened. In the last 10 months, we have received over 5 million individual contributions. 5 million. That is more individual campaign contributions than any candidate in American history at this point in a campaign. Anybody here know what the average contribution is? I love that. I really do when I hear that. $27. When I talk about a political revolution and transforming America, that is already one of the things that we have accomplished. What we have told everybody, guess what? You can run a winning national campaign without being dependent on Wall Street or the drug companies for your money. I like that. You know what? You're right. We don't need a damn super PAC. But Secretary Clinton has gone a different route. What can I tell you? What she has done is establish several super PACs, and her largest one reported not so long ago that they had raised $25 million from special interests, including $15 million from Wall Street. In addition to that, as many of you know, Secretary Clinton over the years has given speeches to Wall Street financial institutions behind closed doors and has been paid $225,000 a speech. Now, what I think is if you're going to be paid $225,000 for a speech, it must be an extraordinarily brilliant speech. It must be a speech that could transform the world. It must be Shakespearean. So I think that Secretary Clinton should share that brilliant speech with the rest of the country. The American people have a right to know if what she says behind closed doors to Wall Street is what she says to the American people. And there is another issue out there which, for the people of Ohio, for the people of the Midwest, for the people of this country, has been of enormous consequence, and that is our disastrous trade policies. Now, I was elected to Congress representing Vermont, took my seat in 1991. It took me about 3 minutes to figure out that NAFTA and later on other trade agreements were written by corporate America to benefit corporate America. What these trade agreements were about are pretty simple. What NAFTA said, what permanent normal trade relations with China and the other agreements said is, look, I'm a corporation. Why do I want to pay somebody in Ohio 20, 25, 30 bucks an hour when I can shut down the plant here, move to some low-wage country, pay people there pennies an hour, bring my products back into this country. That was what those trade agreements were about. They were about corporate greed. That's exactly what they were about. And you know what's happened? Since 2001, this country has lost almost 60,000 factories and millions of decent paying jobs. And on top of that, these trade agreements have created a race to the bottom. You know what I mean by that? What I mean by that is that if you get a job in manufacturing today, you will likely be paid significantly less than somebody who did that job 20 years ago. And the reason for that is employers are saying to workers, you got two choices. Either you're going to accept a reduction in wages and benefits, or else we're moving to China. Your choice. Well, that is not a choice American workers should have to make. Not only did I vote against all of these trade agreements, I helped lead the opposition to all of these trade agreements. But I'm sorry to have to tell you that Secretary Clinton has had a very different position on trade than I have. She supported NAFTA. She supported permanent normal trade relations with China, trade agreements that have cost us millions of decent paying jobs while corporate America made huge profits. Did I say huge? That's what I thought I said, okay. Now, there is at this moment, another trade agreement up on the floor of the House and the Senate. It's called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Smart group of people. I helped lead the opposition against the TPP, one of the first to oppose it. Now, after all of the unions in this country, every single one stood up and said no to the TPP. After supporting it, Secretary Clinton came on board and opposed it. She supported it, she opposed it. But just the other day, she said that she wants to make it tougher for automobiles to be imported in this country under the TPP. That's fine, but it does not go anywhere near far enough. Our job is to kill this disastrous trade agreement. We got to kill the TPP, and then we got to start all over, creating trade agreements that work for the workers of this country, for poor people abroad, not just the CEOs of multinational corporations. Everybody in this room knows that one of the important functions and jobs of a president is to conduct sensible foreign policy. The most important foreign policy debate that has taken place in the modern history of America, the most consequential debate, was over Iraq. In 2002, I listened very closely as a member of the House to what President Bush and Vice President Cheney and Don Rumsfeld and all these guys I listened very closely to what they said because I knew that on issues of war and peace, the result would be that young men and women would come back from that war without their lives. And in fact, it turned out that my small state was hit very, very hard, and I went to more funerals than I ever dreamed that I would go to. I listened to that debate very carefully. I voted against the war in Iraq. And if you go to my website, berniesanders.com, listen to what I said in 2002 in terms of my concerns about the destabilization of the region after the overthrow of Saddam Hussein. And this is in addition to the point that Congresswoman Gabbard made a few moments ago. How does it always happen that we can spend trillions of dollars on war, but we can't rebuild our crumbling infrastructure because we don't have enough money? I know it's a radical idea, but maybe we want to rebuild the water system in Flint, Michigan. Maybe we want to rebuild our roads and our bridges and our rail system rather than rebuilding the infrastructure of Iraq or Afghanistan. Now, this campaign is doing well because we are listening to the American people and not just wealthy campaign contributors. And what the American people are telling me, what workers are telling me, is they cannot make it on $8 or $9 an hour. What they are telling me is that we have got to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Nobody who works 40 hours a week in this country should live in poverty. This campaign listens to senior citizens, and what they are telling me is they can't make it on $11,000 or $12,000 a year. Can't do it. And you can do the arithmetic and you understand they cannot do it. Now, I got Republican colleagues in the Senate. They want to cut Social Security. I've got bad news for them. We're not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security benefits. This campaign is listening to young people. And what young people are telling me is, why does it happen that just because we got an education, we did what we were supposed to do, why is it that we have to pay off debt for year after year after year? I have talked to people all across this country. Talked to a woman in my own city of Burlington, Vermont. Her dream was to become a doctor. That's what she is. She now is paying off $300,000 in debt for becoming a doctor. We need doctors. She shouldn't have to pay off $300,000 in debt. We have a major dental crisis in America in terms of affordable dental care. I talked to a woman in Iowa, graduated dental school, $400,000 in debt. Talked to a young man, went to college for 2 years, dropped out, $60,000 in debt. Talked to a guy in Nevada, 55 years old. He's been paying off his student debt for 25 years. He's more in debt today than when he took it out 25 years ago. If you take a deep breath and you think outside of the box, you understand how crazy this is. It's crazy. It's crazy for this reason. It's crazy for this reason. We live in a competitive global economy. We need the best educated workforce in the world. Our job is to encourage people to get an education, not punish them for getting an education. Fifty years ago, you had a high school degree. You know what? You were doing damn good. You can go out and get a lot of good jobs. The world has changed. The economy has changed. Today, people need more education than they used to. So when we talk about public education, we cannot just talk about first grade through 12th grade. That was good back then. It doesn't work today. And that is why we need to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And we need to significantly lower student debt by allowing people to refinance their loans at the lowest interest rates they can find. Now, my opponents say this is an expensive idea. How are you going to pay for it, Bernie? I will tell you how we're going to pay for it. We're going to impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. You know, when Wall Street's greed and illegal behavior destroyed our economy, Congress bailed them out. Now it is their time to help the middle class of this country. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the Latino community. They are tired of living in the shadows, tired of living in fear. I want comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. This campaign is listening to the Native American community. Native Americans have been cheated, lied to, treaties have been broken from the very earliest days of this country. If elected president, we will treat the Native American community with the respect and dignity they deserve. I am a member of the Senate Environmental Committee. I have talked to scientists all over the world. climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. It is already creating devastating problems in our country and around the world. We have a moral responsibility to leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for future generations. Together, we are going to take on the fossil fuel industry. We are going to tell them that their short-term profits are not as important as the future of our planet. Now, you got a lot of Republicans running around the country talking about family values. You ever hear Republicans talk about family values? They just love families, especially wealthy families who could contribute to their campaign. But all of you must know that when Republicans talk about family values, what they mean is that no woman in this arena, in this state, in this country, should have the right to control her own body. I disagree. Now, I know that I will not shock anybody here to tell you that in politics today, there is a lot of hypocrisy. I know you're all shocked to hear that, right? But when you talk about hypocrisy, this issue paves new ground. And I'll tell you why. What Republicans say every day is how much they hate the government. They want to cut Social Security or privatize it. They want to cut Medicare. They want to cut Medicaid. They want to cut the Veterans Administration. They want to end the Postal Service. They hate the government. It is so terrible. They want to get the government out of your lives, except if you are a woman who has to make a very personal choice. In that case, my Republican colleagues love the government. And when Republicans talk about family values, what they are also saying is that our gay brothers and sisters should not have the right to be married. I disagree. Now, I've been married for 27 years to my wife, Jane. We have 4 great kids and 7 beautiful grandchildren, and we believe in family and family values, but they're very different than Republican family values. And again, I want you to think outside of the box think outside of the status quo. When we talk about family values, please understand there is one major country on earth that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. And you're living in that country. What does that mean? It means that today in Ohio, today in Vermont, a woman is given birth. But it also means if that woman is working class or low income and her family doesn't have a lot of money, the likelihood is she will be forced to separate herself from that baby in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That is not right. That is unfair to the mother, unfair to the baby. And that is why we are going to pass legislation that guarantees 3 months paid family and medical leave. Now, I'm a member of the committee that helped write the Affordable Care Act. And the Affordable Care Act has done some very important things. It has done away with this obscenity called pre-existing conditions. Years from now, people will look back and say, pre-existing condition? How crazy is that? To deny people coverage for the conditions they most need. That's a great insurance policy. It's gone. We have added some 17 million people to the ranks of the insured. We have done away with discrimination against women in terms of what they pay for premiums because they're women. Didn't make a whole lot of sense. All of that is positive, but we have got to acknowledge that we have yet, despite the ACA, very serious problems in healthcare. Today in America, 29 million Americans have zero health insurance. Many others, including many of you, I guess, are underinsured with high deductibles and high copayments. Is that true? It is not uncommon for people to have deductibles of $5,000, $8,000, $10,000. Now, what happens if you don't have a lot of money in your pocket and you got a $5,000 deductible and you get sick? You don't go to the doctor. That's what happens. And that is true all over this country. You know what the result of that is? People walk into the doctor's office much sicker than they should be. And the doctor said, why didn't you come in here 6 months ago? And people say, well, didn't have any insurance, had a high deductible. Some of those people die. We lose thousands of people every year who go to the doctor's office too late. And then there's another issue that's out there in terms of healthcare, which is really crazy. And that is the pharmaceutical industry is charging us by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. In the late 1990s, I took a busload of women, working class women, who were dealing with breast cancer over the Canadian border to Montreal. You all know why we went to Canada. We went to Canada, and what these women were able to do is buy the exact same medicine that they were needing for breast cancer and pay 10% of the price they were paying in Vermont and in America. 10%. But it's not just Canada. All over the world, medicine is substantially less expensive than it is in America because the drug companies are ripping us off in an unconscionable way. In Congress, we are hearing from oncologists who tell us that their cancer patients cannot afford the medicine they need. We got veterans who are dealing with hepatitis C. A new, very good drug has come out. You know what it costs? $1,000 a pill. You want to hear crazy? What crazy is that in America today, 1 out of 5 Americans who receive a prescription are unable to afford to buy that prescription. That is crazy. And then on top of all of that, we end up paying far, far more per person for health care than do the people of any other country. We are paying almost 3 times what the British pay, 50% more than the French, much more than the Canadians. In my view, and let me be very clear about this because I've been criticized, I believe that health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. And that is why I believe we have got to move to a Medicare for all health care program. And when we do that, we not only guarantee health care to all people, we save the average middle-class family thousands of dollars a year on health care costs. And again, when we think outside of the box, what we have to be asking ourselves is, what will people think 20, 30 years from now, when you have to explain to your grandchildren that there were people in this country who died because they didn't have health insurance? We have got to change that situation and change it now. Everybody here knows that what American history is about is the understanding that change never takes place from the top on down, always from the bottom on up. Nobody gave workers, employers, and companies did not give workers the right to form a union. Workers fought for that right. They got beaten up and went to jail and sometimes died for that right. Nobody gave African Americans their freedom. People fought and died, black and white. Millions of Americans said, African American and their white allies said, you know what, in America, this country will not continue to have racism and bigotry and discrimination. That's how change came about. I want you to think about this. 100 years ago in America, women did not have the right to vote. Women could not go to the schools or get the education they wanted. Women could not do the jobs they wanted. But women and their male allies said, in America, women will not be second-class citizens. If we were in this room 10 years ago, which is a very short time from an historical perspective, and somebody jumped up and said, you know, Bernie, I think that by the year 2015, gay marriage will be legal in 50 states in this country, the person next to him would have said, what are you smoking? That's crazy. All right? But what happened? The gay community and their straight allies said, you know what? In this country, people should have the right to love and marry whomever they want. And that took an enormous amount of struggle and courage. And let me give you an even more recent example of how change takes place. If we were here 7 years ago, I guess, and somebody said, you know, Bernie, this minimum wage of $7.25 is a disaster. I think we should raise it to $15 an hour. What the person in the room would have said, $15 an hour? You're crazy. You're talking about doubling, more than doubling the minimum wage. You can't think that big. You're wild-eyed. You're radical. Well, you know what happened? What happened is that people in the fast food industry, people working at McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, they went out on strike. They rallied the community. And you know what happened? Seattle passed $15. San Francisco, $15. Los Angeles, $15. Oregon, $15. It's sweeping the country. And here is the point. Here is the point of all of these stories that I just told you. Is that if we are determined, we can change the status quo. Nothing that I have talked about tonight, not one thing, is a radical idea. Healthcare for all is not radical. It exists all over the world. Paid family and medical leave, not radical, exists all over the world. Free tuition at public colleges and universities, not radical, exist in many countries. Raising the minimum wage to a living wage exists in many countries. What our job is to think outside of the box and be determined in fighting for a nation that we know we can become. We should not have the highest rate of childhood poverty in the industrialized world when we have more wealth and income inequality than any other major country. That is what the political revolution is about. Simply stated, it is about people coming together and fighting to create a government that works for all of us, not just the few. It is to revitalize American democracy so that every person here and in America is actively involved in shaping the future of this country. Now, during the course of this campaign, I get criticized a whole lot. And one of the criticisms is that, you know, Bernie Sanders is a nice guy, but he can't win the general election. Well, let me correct the record on that. In virtually every poll that has been out there, we beat Donald Trump, and we beat him by bigger numbers than Hillary Clinton does. In fact, if the Democratic Party wants the strongest candidate to defeat Donald Trump, you're looking at that candidate. But it's not just polls. As I said earlier, we are going to defeat Donald Trump because the American people do not want a president who insults in the most coarse manner anybody who does not look or sound like him. We are going to defeat Donald Trump because the American people understand that coming together, bringing our people together, trumps dividing us up. We will defeat Donald Trump because the American people understand that community, helping each other, trumps selfishness. And the American people will defeat Donald Trump because they understand that every religion on earth, whether it is Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, all religions teach that at the end of the day, love trumps hatred. On Tuesday, there will be a very important primary election here in Ohio. And here is the simple truth about that. If there is a large voter turnout, we will win. If there is a low voter turnout, we will lose. Our job, therefore, is to create a large, very large, huge voter turnout. Thank you all very much.
Well, hey everybody, that was Bernie Sanders live from somewhere in Columbus, Ohio. It's a stadium he was at there. I had it on the title card. Thank you so much, Steph, for making that really quick. That was a fantastic feed there from WBNS 10 TV in Columbus, Ohio. We had a massive crowd. There's lots of you here. Thank you so much for being here. That was fantastic.